This episode is proudly sponsored by PropWise, the dedicated training platform for leasehold property professionals. At PropWise, we know this industry can be tough, with lone working, challenging conversations, and high-pressure environments often becoming the norm. That's why our courses don't just cover legislation and best practice, they also focus on the human side of the job, including well-being, resilience, and staying safe when working alone. Whether you're new to the role or a seasoned pro, PropWise offers flexible learning designed to support you, professionally and personally. Contact us today to start learning on your terms, because confident, capable and well-supported property professionals are at the heart of a stronger sector.
Welcome to another episode of Beyond Four Walls, the podcast that explores the stories behind the people in property and beyond. I'm your host, Jodie Fraser, and today I'm joined by someone whose energy and industry insight are helping to reshape the future of property management. Darren Waitson, founder and CEO at Nirvana. With a background rooted in leadership and a deep passion for delivering real value to managing agents and leaseholders, Darren is all about creating partnerships built on trust, service, and long-term thinking. At Nirvana, he's helping clients future-proof their properties with sustainable maintenance solutions and transparent people-first communication. And in this episode, we go beyond the contracts and the compliance to talk about culture, connection, and the importance of choosing your partners wisely. Darren, thank you so much for being with me today.
Good morning, Jodie. Thank you very much for having me.
So can you just basically start at the beginning and tell me a little bit about your background and how you found your way into the property industry?
So, I suppose going back to when I was, when I left school, I initially left school and went to work for my father, who was an electrician. So I was his apprentice. Must have been the first time round I really struggled leaving school and then becoming my dad's apprentice. That didn't last too long. I was out on site and probably thought I knew too much and it didn't really work. So I then went into, did a little bit of graphic design. I then went into car sales, real sort of mixed bag really. Did all right on all of those, and then started getting a little bit older and decided that I wanted some of my weekends back. When I was in sales, you had to work the weekends, and as a kind of late teenager, early 20s, wasn't really my thing. So actually quite late into becoming an apprentice, probably sort of 4, 5, 6 years late, but became an apprentice with my dad, qualified as an electrician. My background originally was not in residential, it was more in commercial fit out as an electrician. And then over time, we then kind of started to get more involved in the residential industry. And Nirvana was founded with my dad and my mother at the time. We've just slowly grown that business now into a fully national hard and soft services business, which we can probably get into a little bit later. But fully national, originally was based out of Bromley in Kent. We're now based in Sevenoaks in Kent, but our operation spans the whole of the UK, covering as far up as Aberdeen, all the way down to the south coast. So quite a huge operation now, with very proud of this as well, but over 100 directly employed engineers and office support staff across multiple businesses within what we now have as the Nirvana Group. Originally started as Nirvana Maintenance, and now we have a few brands within that group covering a range of services and also covering a range of sectors as well.
Has there been a defining moment, I guess, in that whole journey? And I will actually go back to the graphic design point in a minute, if you don't mind. But has there been a defining moment in this journey or career journey so far?
There's honestly been so many, because I started the business from the ground up. As I said before, I remember my first ever phone call from receiving from a client. I remember employing my first employee, getting my first van, getting my first office. Fast forward several years, our first acquisition of another business, which is part of our group strategy now of acquiring businesses. Surviving and dealing with COVID as a service business was really, really challenging. So lots of milestones there, but I'd say the most defining moment is actually quite recently. We were very fortunate enough to be awarded the first ever national full hard and soft FM service partnership with Dandara Living, which covers all of their properties, and is a significant milestone for us as a business. And I'm really excited to say now we're working and exploring other opportunities with other operators and managing agents in similar partnerships to offer the benefits and savings that we can do by entering into those partnerships. So yeah, actually quite a recent one actually. As of the 1st of January of this year, that's probably by far the biggest defining moment, which is really exciting for us because we're a 15-year-old business. So to have a defining moment that recent, and I'm extremely optimistic for the future for Nirvana Group. We're really on a crest of a wave at the moment with growth and capitalizing on the opportunities there. It's a challenging industry, and there's lots of challenges out there, but we're facing those head on and really capitalizing on the opportunities ahead of us. So yeah, really exciting times.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just goes to show how much you've put into this business, you know, that you've got this huge contract. It just goes to show really that, you know, sometimes you get that defining moment that changes the trajectory, of how you move the business forward. But actually your consistent growth has created this opportunity, you know, 15 years in. Is that gonna create more jobs for people, and, you know, ultimately it'll help the economy and everything, won't it? So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're now talking about how we can bring people into our business as apprenticeships, and the younger generation coming in. I'm very fortunate that I work with some governing bodies, and they're coming to me now to asking me advice about how we can retain talent, because there's tons of talent already in the industry, and there's challenges of people leaving the sector, which is a challenge the industry faces. But how do we bring talent in? And that's not just from a property management perspective, but the trade side of it. I mean, my route into the industry, which came from electrical apprenticeships, has been on a decline for years, and COVID obviously didn't help that. And I think the attraction into the sector now is really challenging. And I'm not sure. I actually have a really topical or timely situation in my own family. My oldest boy, unfortunately, can't be an electrician because he is colourblind, which doesn't go too well as being an electrician. He can't follow in his granddad's and his father's footsteps, but he's really interested in our business, and he's doing business studies at the moment at college, and does one day a week with us. He sits across a few of the teams, and with our business that's grown, we have marketing team, we have a finance team, operational team, HR, and so forth. He's currently sitting in the finance team, but he's showing an interest in the property side of it, which is the primary service, obviously. So yeah, trying to encourage him to look at courses and potentially even go into property to management on the client side is something that he's exploring at the moment. So yeah.
Oh, that's exciting, because I think, you know, there are so many opportunities in our industry, and, you know, you don't just have to choose the one path, and what you've created will create that opportunity for so many to explore various different options. But going back to your graphic design, just a really quick question. Has that helped you to build the business in terms of marketing and that sort of thing, having that background?
Absolutely, yeah. I really enjoy the visual side of it and the aesthetics of what we do. Also sales. I did a bit of sales as well, and that comes into almost daily with what I do now in my position, which is driving growth within the group, meeting clients and looking for opportunities, the sales side of it as well. But yeah, to answer your question, the graphic design is a huge one for us. You have to be out there to be seen. We have a lot of word of mouth and organic growth, but making yourself known to the wider sector is something that you have to be very good at these days. So we've actually set up a business within our group to drive our marketing, which is a business called Studio 5, because we want to build a business that also offers those services outside of our group, but also offers those services in-house as well, because I'm not saying I'm a control freak, but I like to have control of how we operate across all of the functions of our business, and marketing is a huge one of that. So
I always say, you know, if you're not visible, especially, you know, I try and do as much as I possibly can, but I don't think I've even scratched the surface of, with all the digital marketing side of everything as well. You know, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I love the fact that you've got that background, because, and even the fact that you're a bit of a control freak with it as well, because that's what you need. You know, when you're building a business, you want everything to not necessarily look the same, but have that brand awareness, you know, so people will connect who you are with if they see something, or it might even remind them of you, and then, you know, you're in their head. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. But before you started the business, you've just mentioned about sales and everything, but what shaped your views on leadership and client service?
obviously we started Nirvana a long time ago. I would say I'm pretty self-taught, to be honest with you. I don't think there was a particular job or a role that shaped that for me. I've made tons of mistakes. I always say this internally to friends, family, even my staff is I'm self-taught, and I still make tons of mistakes these days. And that's one of the things I stress and talk to my clients about as well, is that it's how we overcome those challenges and the mistakes that we make. So we're always very open about that. I think the only thing that I can say that was a bit of a watershed moment for me personally in terms of leadership was I was very fortunate several years ago now. I was invited to go on the Goldman Sachs small business program, which was the first time as a leader of a business that I actually got taught it. I didn't do it at school. I didn't particularly like academics at school. As I said before, I went into graphic design, did sales, trained and qualified as an electrician. So no one taught me how to run a business. And when I see the size of the business now, that's all been built whilst I've been in it. So the Goldman Sachs program was really, really good for me. I'm the first ever Waitson to ever go to Oxford University, which is something I'm very proud of. So yeah, I'd say Goldman Sachs was, and that covered everything as a business. Leadership was a big part of that as well.
Yeah. I mean, so what inspired the name? I'm intrigued.
To the name, I've actually got a funny story with this. So when we first started the business and the name was created, so I come back to the truest sense of the name. I was a bit embarrassed by the true meaning. I'm big enough now personally and as a business that you'll see what I mean in a minute. If you'd asked me that question 15 years ago, it would have been around enlightenment, and in Buddhist terminology, Nirvana means perfect, idyllic place. And I used to market around that, if I'm being honest with you, saying Nirvana has been created to create your perfect, idyllic place. When we maintain your buildings, this is what we're going to be delivering for you. And it all kind of worked, and everyone took that as face value. But the actual genuine reason is that it was named after our family dog. Our family dog was called Maya. She's no longer with us now, but she was a lovely German Shepherd, and her breed, bloodline, family name was spelt slightly different, but it was Nirvana, and that's how we came about the name. So now you fast forward, and we have Nirvana Group, over 100 employees, and we get involved in quite big national contracts, as well as small contracts as well. By the way, it's not all big national shiny things. I'm much more comfortable with saying what the truest sense of what Nirvana was when the name was created. And we even have now a montage and a picture of Maya up in our offices now, because we're actually very proud of it. But going back to what I said before, initially I thought when we was much smaller, and I was probably a little bit more insecure about myself and the business, we remodeled the real meaning. So yeah, it's very much a family element.
Well, I love the real meaning of it as a dog lover as well. I think, and it's something that people they'll recognize in themselves as well, that they've named something after a family pet or a loved one or something like that. And I know, not sure if you know of Olive Management, they named Olive Management after the dog Olive. So
okay.
So it's great, and I love that. So I much prefer the dog story. So were there any challenges then in setting up the business, and how did you overcome them and that sort of thing?
The biggest challenge early on was the fact that when we started the business, it was just myself and my father out on the road, and we used to do some what would be now seen as absolutely crazy things to work. Like we never had this kind of, we're only from Bromley in Kent, we're only going to work in Kent. We always travelled wherever the work was, and that's why we've always had work and why we've always managed to grow the business. So some of the days we would be driving from Kent all the way down to Dorset and then back. There was one instance where we was on the way back from Dorset, myself and father, and we were sharing the drive, and my mother had received a call out from a block management company in North London, and we got sent to North London right back from Dorset to there.
Oh, wow.
A hellish day, but that's ultimately how we carved out the business that we have today, through that passion and determination to serve our clients. I think the challenge that we had with that was that when we first started to grow and employ people, we had the same expectations on our staff. It's completely unreasonable to expect staff to do what we were prepared to do when we're trying to carve out the business. And if I'm being honest with you, Jodie, we really struggled with that in the early days. Just to such high, I look back now, at the time I didn't see it, but I look back now and the incredibly high expectation and demands that we had on our own staff. That caused problems, and we probably had a high turnover of staff for that. We had people that were incredibly loyal, that did worked with us for a long period of time. But I think we had a high turnover of staff, particularly with the engineers, because myself and father came from the engineering background. I say days like I explained then became the norm that we'd expect. So teaching ourselves and becoming much more realistic in the expectations of staff is something that we've certainly improved on and certainly got right now. So yeah, it's kind of managing our own expectations. Actually, I think it's probably the most challenging thing that we had starting the business.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as business owners, you will put in that extra level of effort if you want to build something. You know, you will do what you have to do to make it work. And yeah, it is really hard to find that balance. But the fact that you identified that quite quickly, I'm sure, and you don't do that now, just shows your growth, and not just in how you've grown the business, but how you've grown as a business owner as well. You know, and it's something you should be really proud of.
I think there's a tipping point when you go from effectively having a self-employed business where it's just yourself or yourself and a family member, which is effectively being a self-employed small business, to then going into a SME small business kind of mindset and growing that. There's just sometimes you get to this tipping point and it's like, do you know what? It's just easier if we just do it ourselves. Like we had that kind of that twilight zone where it was like, do you know what? This is actually harder for us. There's more stress, there's more pressure on us when we now have 2-3 employees rather than it just being us. And we battled that. You say we overcame it quickly. I think when we look back, we probably didn't overcome it that quickly. It was probably 2 or 3 years of that kind of back and forth decisions that we were making. And then kind of the penny dropped and it was like, look, we have to build a business here that's based on fairness and reasonableness and don't expect too much. And support the staff in to deliver the jobs and create systems and processes to make everything easier for everyone. So yeah, obviously we've overcome that, because when I think now that we have operatives right now, this second operating in Aberdeen, Glasgow, Edinburgh, south of the border, Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, Sheffield, Bristol, Birmingham, London, like we have operatives everywhere now. So it's we're obviously doing something okay.
Well, absolutely. And as you said earlier, you know, we all make mistakes along the way, and as long as you learn from them, that's all you can do. But talking about working with managing agents, then, what does a great partnership with a managing agent look like to you?
Good question. We're strong on partnerships and collaboration. I think the industry, particularly with suppliers, typically with trade-related suppliers, there's still that kind of hands-off approach, maybe a bit of distrust. There's some really good suppliers out there that have broken down that barrier. We'd like to think we're part of that as well. But I still hear stories where I cringe about things that go on, and it's just kind of really sad when people operate in a certain way. But I think, again, a topical one that jumps out for me is a managing agent, JFM. We've worked with them for a decade. They had their 10-year anniversary this year, and we were invited along to support that event, which was really nice to be part of that. That's testament to how we approach our relationships with clients. And during the announcements at the start of the event, we got mentioned, and they mentioned Joe and James, the owners, said Nirvana are one of our key suppliers. They always have been, and they've never lost their roots and their values from day one. And that really meant a lot for us, because as a small family run business to now what we are, and I've seen JFN and my clients, these relationships I love, because I started with JFN when they were much smaller, Joe and James, to now they're a really good business and a growing business and thriving business, and we've been part of that journey as well. So I think that's what a great partnership looks like for me, is when you're early on working with someone and you see each other grow, and you've both played a part of it. We wouldn't be where we are without clients like JFM, and I'm sure JFM would say they wouldn't be the managing agent they are without suppliers like us. So that I think is what a great partnership truly means. Yeah,
and as a managing agent myself, you know, with many years experience, too many to count really. You've got to rely on your contractors and your suppliers, and because, you know, without them, you are nothing. If you can't get the job done in order to serve your clients, you know, you've got to have that relationship, and you've got to be able to build that and keep that relationship going. But did you see anything in particular in the industry that made you want to work with managing agents, or did you see a gap in the market for somebody like your company to come in and just be like, look, we can do all of these things for you? Was there a gap? Was there a moment in time, if you like, that you spotted that?
Yeah, I think the actual first time we got into block management was not actually a positive, and let me explain that in more detail. So when we first started out, we were working in commercial fit out, and we had a business that was focused on more construction type work, and unfortunately that business failed because during the 2008 recession, 2 or 3 of our largest clients went bust, and that took that business with us. Nirvana Maintenance then got produced off the back of that event, and because we were loosely working with block management companies at the same time, and I always remember speaking to my father and saying, love working. I love popping around to those managing agents when I go and get it, because I was out on the tools at the time. You got to remember that I was popping around, going getting the keys from the managing agent and popping for a cup of coffee and a biscuit and having a sit down, talking about what was going on and just building relationships. And we used to get paid on time. And that in construction doesn't always happen. So I think when we first got involved with block management, it was because of the relationships and the friendliness of the sector. The fact that it's a good industry to work in, it's a very robust industry in terms of it's not going anywhere. It's relatively recession proof. There are challenges that come off the back of it, but it's not going anywhere. You get paid on time, predominantly.
Yeah.
So
most of the time, yeah.
Most of the time, yeah. So there are instances, but then again, part of this partnership thing is we understand that, and it's about communication. So when we're not going to get paid on time, it's not normally because the managing agent just doesn't want to pay you. I've never had that situation. There's pressures with service charges and just timing of events. Sometimes the service charge is depleted, and you might have to wait a couple of months for it to be reinstated. And I think just understanding that and having that relationship with clients, we always just say, look, if there's going to be a problem, just pre-warn us and tell us. I've had instances in the past, not so much now actually, but more in the past, where clients would call me up and say, we've got this real problem with fire safety and we need to do this work and it's affecting our safety, but we don't have the funds. But in 2 months' time, we will have the funds, and we make commercial decisions on that. And I'm proud to say that we always take that collaborative approach. So
yeah, and from a managing agent's point of view, that's great, because the last thing we want to do is to upset you or to cause a problem with your cash flow or anything like that. But we certainly since Grenfell, there's been so many pressures on us to get things done quickly when there are, as you say, no funds available potentially, or post COVID. I've certainly seen there's been a huge increase in arrears, because maybe not so much now because things have settled down sort of 5 years on, but certainly the first few years after COVID, or after all the lockdowns and furlough and people were losing their jobs, or they were still poorly because of COVID, and they therefore couldn't work, they couldn't pay their service charge. So there was all of those constraints as well, at the same time as all of the building safety and fire risk stuff was all going on. So well, it's still going on, but yeah, it's great, as you say. Collaboration is certainly my biggest thing, that you have to have that with any relationship that you've got. But do you have anything in your business where you stay on top of sort of the legislation that managing agents are up against, or is that something that you just go in, do the job, and you're happy for them to lead on?
No, we have tons of accreditations to keep on top of the regulatory and legislation changes, and in a huge part of our business, which is fire safety, that, as you touched on after Grenfell and things like that, that's impacted us, and we had to stand up quickly. And I've seen the seismic change in approach of the sector as a whole towards fire safety, and obviously the pressures that creates from us. It's created great opportunities to train our staff and fire door inspections, fire door remedials, fireproofing. We hold all the top leading accreditations you could possibly have for those. So in addition to that, I think the industry does really well on industry events. There's really good governing bodies and associations out there, not just in leasehold, but in build to rent, which I'm particularly getting involved in now. The next couple of years, we've got some really exciting opportunities there that I touched on before about the partnership with Darren Living and other operators. The what used to be called the UKAA, now the ARL, are really good at putting on events, and so are Armour and the Property Institute within leasehold. So yeah, I think there's lots out there for suppliers and also managing agents to have peer-to-peer learning and also formal training. I don't think you can do enough of that, but I think that this industry does extremely well as sharing knowledge amongst ourselves and learning from past mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. And what do you think is the biggest issue currently facing property managers at the moment?
Time management. The amount of demands on a property manager is huge. I see it daily with our clients. What the amount of hats that a property manager has to wear is insane, isn't it? Really. So I talk to my staff and my senior leadership team, talk to our staff a lot about that, because it's a really demanding industry, and people come to us when they have problems. Like, we're fixing problems and we're solving problems, and we have to train our staff to be quite thick-skinned with that, and also educate them. So when we bring someone in that's never worked in property maintenance or property management before, when they're having an irate property manager, in some cases, it's not all rosy all the time. We have to say, look, it's not actually the property manager; it's they're responding on behalf of a leaseholder and a resident who's probably 10 times more irate than the property manager's being. So just understand that and be sympathetic, and pick the phone up. Pick the phone up as well. I mean, I'm not of the older generation, but I'm not of the younger generation either. So I used to pick the phone up.
In the middle, yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the middle. Yeah, I'm in that. Yeah, so pick the phone up and have a conversation and just try to understand, because I've seen back and forth emails and my team communicate within the same office, because it's quite a young office, all via Teams and WhatsApp and all this going. We communicate. I wouldn't do that myself. The business has to change, has to adapt with the team that we have and the way the industry is going, the way society's going. But yeah, I think understanding our clients and the pressures that they're under is actually one of our biggest wins in the sector. We've been in the sector a long time. We have great relationships with our clients who tell us all the problems that they have, and we've built a business and train our staff to be able to deal with that. So yeah, I think time management. I think there's also issues around the demands of the sector, leaseholders and residents, versus the fees that are out there. I know there's pressures around that. I think there's an imbalance between what the expectation is to what people are prepared to pay for it. But I'd like to think that we offer solutions and help for that. So we build a business and build roles, and we have account managers. And this is one of the things that we introduced. So one of the challenges we actually had was, as we grew, people used to like dealing with Darren or individual people. And as we grew the business, we came away from that somewhat, in that we used to have like an ops assistant who'd create the jobs and be on the front line dealing with comms. We didn't have someone scheduling and booking the jobs in. We didn't have someone that would review the report and build the quotations off the back of some reports. And then we'd have a finance team, multiple people within that process. And a couple of years ago, we realized that we were really struggling with growing with that, because the property manager doesn't want to deal with 5 people, they want to deal with 1. So we've now changed it. We have an account manager who has certain clients, or in some cases, large managing agents will deal with certain property managers within a client. So they have that one point of contact again. And we've seen real success off the back of that, because people want to deal with people. And when a problem happens, if you have that relationship, the problem isn't magnified 10 times, because they know who we are. They know the person behind the keyboard, and they know it's probably just a genuine mistake. And that helps smooth things over. So yeah, I'm delighted with our model. We've actually gone back to how we used to operate when it was much smaller, which Darren coming out and picking the keys up and having a chat about what's gone on in your week. We've now got back to that, albeit we're 100 plus team now.
Yeah, and I think it's, for a property manager, having that consistency and knowing who you can pick the phone up to, and understanding that you don't have to just sort of go around the houses, and you've got to speak to this person about one thing and that person about something else. I think you've hit the nail on the head then, that that's keeping it personable. As you say, people buy from people at the end of the day. So if you can build that relationship, it's the best way forward. But what do you wish more people understood about the service side of property management?
It's difficult managing tradespeople. It's tough. You need to be a certain type of person, even within our own business, to manage that. that's a real challenge. I'm not sure property managers or our clients always get to see that. They're obviously relying on us to manage that. So I've not got the violin out there on that, but that is a challenge. The other thing I also struggle with is we want this partnership, this collaboration. I think that we're not being a supplier, particularly in trades, we're not always seen as the good guys, but we really are. And to have that trust and honesty, you've got to earn that trust and honesty. But I think sometimes there is this perceived perception that we're trying to pull a fast one or that kind of sort of mindset, and we're really not. And it's not just Nirvana. There's tons of really good suppliers out there that I know of and are prominent in the sector that are doing an amazing job and trying to break down those barriers. So we're not all the bad guys.
No, and the same applies to managing agents as well. You know, there's this fleecehold term that keeps being bandied about by MPs and government, and actually, you know, of course there are people in the industry. There are the bad apples everywhere, the same in your industry, I'm sure. But the majority of us just want to do a good job, and we want to serve our clients, and we want to be paid fairly for that. Of course we do. But, you know, it's a hard one. It really is. But looking ahead to the future of Nirvana, where do you see the business going in the next 3 to 5 years?
I would say that was probably an easier question for me to answer a few years back, because if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, I'd be saying I want to be a full national business. We've achieved that now. Are we going to go international?
Wow, I was about to say.
I'd never say never.
If you need a property manager in Dubai or anything like that, just give me a shout.
You've obviously been on my LinkedIn feed too much. I do like a bit of Dubai myself.
Me too.
So yeah, I'd say that was easy. To answer your question, I think just continuing our growth journey, and I think the really exciting part for us now is the sky is really the limit. I was saying the other day, we've built an amazing business and group of companies with an amazing foundation to now really kick on. I feel like the last 12, 18 months has been game changing for us in what we've achieved. I don't like talking numbers, but it was only a couple of years ago that I was celebrating breaking £1 million revenue. We're now hurtling towards 10 million revenue as a group within 3 years. So the growth trajectory is seriously impressive. Outside of the growth and the financials, we want to be recognised as the UK's partner of choice for facilities management. We've diversified so much now, so we use facilities management rather than property maintenance, because we generally provide such a range of services, whether that is mechanical, electrical, fire safety, PPMs, compliance, housekeeping, communal cleaning, landscaping, window cleaning, like pest control. It's everything that can possibly be a service, residential properties as well. So we want to be recognised as the UK's leading facilities management company, but still deeply rooted in our family roots. And I think that's the challenge as we grow. I still want to be seen as approachable, friendly, personable, but as the UK's leading facilities management company, which I think if I look at the largest FM companies out there, and these are hundreds of millions and billion-pound companies like your Mighties of this world, they don't have a persona, and I don't think they have that. They've lost that. They're just so huge. I don't want to be as huge as that, but I do want to be the leading FM provider within leasehold, build to rent, student accommodation, PPSA, and single family homes, which is what we're focusing on at the moment. I want to be the leading one of that. So hopefully in 3-5 years time, when we're having this conversation, we'll be saying, yeah, you've achieved all that and more, but you still are personable and have your family roots.
Well, I do hope we're having that conversation, because I love the fact that you are so focused on staying sort of that personable, approachable company, because we need it as property managers. We need that sort of environment, because, you know, we want our lives to be a bit easier than they are ultimately. And if you can work with somebody you get on with, and, you know, you can have that relationship with, then all the better. Are there any new services that you're looking to bring into the group at all?
We're hugely investing and also investigating and reviewing AI. AI in facilities management is huge, by the way. I could do a whole podcast on this. It's really really scary, quite frankly. There's one we're looking. I'll give you one brief snapshot of what we're currently looking at the moment. So AI can have agents, is what they're calling them, to try to sort of soften the kind of thing that it's like some computer. An AI agent can receive a works order from a property management company, and also a phone call, which when it gets really scary, but can receive a works order. It would read that works order. It would confirm back to the managing agent that this job's been received, ask it, it would look at what the type of job is, it would look at our schedule, and it would then say to the property manager or resident in some cases, would you like us to send an engineer out this afternoon or tomorrow based on the schedule availability? Would say yes. It would then allocate the job, create the job, allocate it to the engineer, and it would then talk to the engineer via text or even talk, and would say, I've looked at the job, the history of this job indicates that this is the likely cause or defect or the issue that you're going to be faced with. I've checked your van stock. You don't have this stock on board. We've checked the local supplier. It's en route. It's going to deviate for 10, 15 minutes out your way. Would you like us to place a purchase order? And then it would assign that purchase order to the supplier. And when the engineer goes to the supplier, it's there ready, waiting, and then goes to site. And when this has been explained, and I've seen it in action as well, this is not theory. I just remember myself when I first started rummaging around in the back of my van for the part and then getting frustrated and then having to go 20 minutes out of my way to go and get the part and then 20 minutes back. AI is there. It really exists. It's really, really early days with it. And but we are, as a leading business in the sector, we have to stay ahead of the curve. So we are actually investing a lot of time at the moment and also money in investing in AI. We're also looking at automation. So with FixFlow, we've just recently signed a API automation process with FixFlow. We're now on their FixFlow marketplace, which is a new product they've launched. And we, when jobs are created by our client, they automatically turn up into our system, which is this great system called Big Change, which is what we use to allocate jobs and create worksheets and process the jobs. So previously, it would be a works order created by our client, would send it via email or notification through FixFlow. We would then have to manually create that job in our system to then do what we do with the job. That's now been resolved. It automatically turns up into our system. And then the real cool bit is when we then complete the job, it automatically uploads FixFlow on the client side. So the streamline and slickness of that means that we can save time, and our response times and communication has improved tenfold. So that is in the process of being, that API is being done, signed. We've invested in it. It's ready to launch. We're actually in the trial phases of it. Within the next couple of weeks, we're coming live with some of our clients. So we're heavily investing in tech. So yeah, that's kind of the innovations that we're working on. FixFlow being one of the main software that our clients use, but we are talking to other similar software providers to do similar APIs, because for us it's about streamline and speed.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm a big advocate myself of FixFlow. They've got a great product there, so it's good to see that you're on the list. And finally, is there anything you'd like to add or tell our listeners?
I really appreciate you inviting me on. It's always a privilege to be invited to talk about the industry. I'm really passionate about it, not just from my own side, but from my client side as well. I've spent all of my career in this space, and it's something that I'm incredibly passionate about. I regularly get approached by new businesses, up and coming younger generations starting out in business. I'm always open to offer advice. My time is becoming more and more strained as we're growing as a business, but I never want to kind of not be available for the new sort of starters coming into the industry. So if anyone's listening to this podcast that's thinking about starting up a facilities management or a field services business, you can find me on LinkedIn and you can approach me. I'm more than happy to spend some time talking to you about it. And likewise, if there's any clients that we're not working with that have listened to this podcast, I'm very much open for business. And I want to stress, as much as we are a national business and rapidly growing, we very much built a business for that personal partnership, one-to-one relationships, as I said before, with the account managers. So as we're working with us, you get the benefit and buying power of a big organisation now, but you still get that personal touch as if you're dealing with a much smaller local business.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'll put your contact details in the show notes anyway, so just click straight through. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jodie. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my latest podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. The links are in the show notes. Or you can contact me on jodie@jodiefraser.com. For more content and updates, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favourite platforms. Thank you once again for listening. Until next time, take care.